Hi there, my name is PICCIA and I am a UX and UI expert, and today I'm here to talk to you about this great project that I'm working on. I'm leading the UX team for the redesign of the website for the Galleria Nazionale dell'Umbria, which is a beautiful museum home to Renaissance and medieval masterpieces in the heart of Italy, in the city of Perugia and the region of Umbria. This website was created maybe 4 years ago, I think, and it was always meant to be a dynamic tool for both visitors and researchers, university students and professors and so on. Anyone who needs information on their works of art had access to their digital archive, which is an amazing feat. I've seen the back end of it and it's very, very impressive. And anybody was able to access it. You or I or anyone who can access the internet could access the digital archive of this museum. However, the code broke. Because these things happen. You create a new site and you think that it's going to have lots of new features and so on. But then things happened, COVID happened, and the best laid plans sometimes don't work as you wanted them to. And the website got abandoned a little bit because the museum had other problems and other issues to deal with. Now the time has come to work on the website again and to create that fantastic interactive tool that everybody at the museum wanted. Now, I want to tell you about this museum a little bit because you need to know that even though it has old works in it, and actually the collection page is not working, so I can't show you, but I can show you the Instagram account for them, which is brilliant. I mean, they got to 52,000 followers in a very, very short time because it's a fairly recent account. And they have, because they're rehanging, the gallery is currently empty. They are rehanging the whole of the works and a lot of them are being restored and the new gigapixel images are being taken. It's a very exciting time to be working there actually because there is so much. We're getting ready for a fantastic new launch, both of the physical galleries and of the virtual galleries. And I'm in charge of making sure that the team delivers the best possible digital experience alongside the real experience. Now, look at these posts. A lot of them are actually behind the scene posts, but they have so much engagement on them. And actually the ones that are more successful are the ones that show what happens behind the scenes, which is so interesting. So actually the posts are in Italian, I'm afraid. So unless you know Italian, you won't understand. But basically, it shows what happens inside a museum when you do a rehang. So it's very clever. And it's not just the fact that the museum is aware and conscious of who they want to attract, but then it's not a stuffy old place. When it's open, the events that it offers go from rock concerts to experimental events. For instance, during lockdown, one thing that the Galleria did was that every other Friday they had a live drawing live on Facebook with 6 or 7 different artists getting together on Zoom and using a cue that started from a work of art. They would do a live drawing to the tune of a DJ. So this is how amazing this museum is. Truly innovative. The director is a bit of a visionary. He was the first one to create a museum radio back, I think it was the year 2000 or 2001 for another museum in Tuscany that he was directing. So he's very, very up to date with the potential of the digital museum as well, which is a great challenge for me as well as extremely exciting. And I am very lucky because the team that I am leading in Italy is of hugely talented companies and individuals. Now let's go back to the museum website. What I want to talk to you about today, after this premise, is what I usually do when I face a new project. Today I am going to show you how I do a review of the existing site and how we look at competitors' websites as well, to see what others have done, how it works, what works for others, what doesn't work, what we like and what we don't like. Now, it's important to say that in the museum world, you don't look at other museums as competitors. Even in your own hometown, another museum is not a competitor. It's a collaborator. They're all colleagues, they're all friends. Now, I'll tell you how I started the project, because it's a team that is mostly in Italy, but I live in Spain. So it's a fully distributed project that's conducted remotely. So the way I started was with a warm-up form. For our first meeting, I created a form just to find out what they liked and didn't like about the website, because people who work at the museum are also users. The users are the end users, obviously, they're the visitors, but also the people who use and create the site need to have their say about what works and what doesn't work, both in the front end and in the back end. So this was a very simple Google form that everyone filled in, and I just wanted to find out from them what you think works best in the current site, what do you think doesn't work at all, the thing that you like best, which is slightly different because we're talking about function first, and now we're talking about aesthetics, really. And the thing you like the least, and then list your favorite museums and cultural institution websites, and the opposite, the ones that you hate. The biggest hope that you have for the new version of the site, and the biggest fear. All these things are really important because they will show what works and doesn't work. So this is where we started from. And this really helped because it made it possible for me to list a series of museums that you see here that we then were able to analyze while we were together. What we liked about the site against is what we didn't like about the site, things to discard and things to keep about the things that we liked. Now, going back to the actual site here. So the first thing that I look at is, what is the main purpose of the site? Whenever I land on a page, on a website, that's the first question that I ask. What do you want me to do here? What's the purpose of the site? And this site does not answer that question. In fact, it gets me motion sick, and I am forced to stay here because I have to talk to you about this page. But really, do not do a slider. A slider gets an immediate thumb down, and you can see why. I can't even actually read. I have barely the time to read the text. On some of the slides, the text is quite hard to see because when you put text against a background that doesn't have any overlay on it, then the text and the background clash, and it's very bad for accessibility. So the text is embedded on the image, therefore it's not readable by a screen reader, and that's just really bad for, obviously it doesn't comply with accessibility. Also, when you have an image and you make it accessible by filling in the alt text, that means that also this is an SEO resource as well as being accessible to a screen reader. Another thing that is against sliders is that, make up your mind, what is it that you want to show me? Basically, a slider is a cop-out for not making the decision on what you want the users to do. And this is what a UX-led web project or digital product in general does. What you start with is the one thing that you want people to do. And actually, if you look at for a tool such as GT Metrics, to have a look at the speed of the site, which is a very important UX evaluation to do, and I will do it now. And it's here. Here you go. The performance is really bad. And it's I'm not an expert at this, but I can tell you, look, fully loaded time, 7.5 seconds. It's crazy. And 57% performance is really low. Let's have a look at another page. Now, one problem that I have with the menu, and UX writing is very important for that, and we have hired a UX writer, is that I get a bit confused. What's the difference between gallery, exhibitions, and collection? What is listen? What is roots? It's confusing language that requires an explanation that is only understandable by those in the know. However, let's just have a look at one of the pages and analyze something else. Now, the designers who designed this website also designed the logo, which you can see here, and which I find a really great logo. And in fact, because it's a play with geometry, Renaissance geometry, and the initials of the gallery, GNU, and it actually won an award. It's very, very clever. These people are extremely talented, and I am delighted that I'm working with them. However, a problem with the typography is that it's way too tiny. I can't read. And also it's down to how the text was conceived, because this is not UX writing. This reads like a boring brochure. So the UX side of UX writing side is extremely important, and the whole site is being redesigned with that in mind. So it's going to be completely different. However, one thing that I really love is how the designers have no fear of white space, and they use it a lot, which I love. It's very, very, very good design. But the typography is way too small. I can barely read it. So one thing that I look at also is if a site is accessible. Like I said already, the slider is a huge no-no. But now if I magnify to 400%, as you can see in the menu bar, the site should still be readable. And this website does the job amazingly well. Why? Because the developers behind this are brilliant. I cannot tell you how happy I am to be working with them. They've blown me away, how creative they are, the solutions that they have, how thorough they are. So look at this. This is fantastic. This is a sign that, this made me want to rehire the team straight away when I checked this, because very few sites are this good when you magnify them to 400%. So this is very quickly what this site does, which is very little at the moment, and it has flaws and it has good sides to it. Now, what we did the competitors analysis, and it was such an interesting and important exercise. The first museum that we looked at was the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. So this is an amazing site that does so much. However, the really interesting thing is that we started looking at this site thinking it was the absolute best. And of course, it is incredible. And then as we went over the rest of our research and we analyzed the findings and we went on deciding what features would work for us or not, we realized that we were going to probably move away from this, because one of the things that make it so spectacular are the big images and the very, very good photography. But the point is that these images that are so big and so amazing actually make it less accessible and a bit more difficult to maneuver. I find that a bit of negative space, white borders, may not look so cool, but they end up giving you a product that is more usable. Now, I want to show you something that I think is here. This is something very important to us, because how to visualize the descriptions of the works of art has been and is, but we've come to a solution now, the main focus, the one problem that will solve all other problems for my museum, my Perugia Museum website. So when you go into individual works, look how cool this is. It's extremely interactive, and here is a palette extracted from the artwork, which is incredible. And there's also the ability to listen to an audio fragment and so on, and it takes you then to collections with this work, other things that are related, and you can make your own creation with this work. So this is a goal, to create something that is as core as this. Now if I click on this color, what happens? It finds all the works that have this color. Now this is something that we are going to be able to do probably, so I can't tell you how excited I am. So here is the document that we have where we did all the competitive analysis. And I tell you one fantastic thing that comes from documenting all that you do and taking notes and having documents that record all the research that you did. It means that when we hired the UX writer, which was the other day, she came on board the other day, but the work on the site, the whole team started at least 2 months ago. She has everything. She has the ability to get up to speed with everything that was done on the project very, very, very quickly. I'll show you here the shared folder that we have here. This is the analysis that I just showed you, the competitive analysis. These are the other docs that document the sessions. We did a museum profile. We did a lot of research on that, and we did, of course, user research. That's so important. And here are the recordings of every single session that we did, and there are transcriptions as well. So someone who has no idea what the project is about could come in here and find the information that they need in this folder. So it's very, very, very important. I'm going to show you now this website, which we looked at first. What I really love about it is how big the type is, because when you are accessible, when you make the typography big enough or very big, you are being accessible. Being accessible is essential for some and useful for all. No one is going to complain about this. People who have issues with reading are going to love you, even though they don't identify as blind or anything like that. And this is an incredible website that actually the only issue that it has is that it actually has things that are a little bit hidden. It's much better than you think it is, but it takes a little while to find out. But it has timelines. Actually, it has horizontal scroll that I'm not so sure about, but it has so many ways that you can interact with it. And so view the collection online. Let's see. Yes, this stories, for instance, it gives you specific bits of information on certain artworks. And it's very interesting because when we started, we thought that the one that we preferred was the Rijksmuseum, and now we are totally going with this one. Now, another thing that I do is I always, again, one of the things that you can check for accessibility, used to check for accessibility, is the Wave tool, which is a tool that tells you if your website is accessible or not. And here it's got contrast error. I mean, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this. It's very, very interesting. However, I'm going to go to see the contrast, and let's have a look where it has problems. So it has problems here, see? So it tells you that this white against this green teal color is not, it fails with smaller sizes, which is interesting. And then let's see, because I would have said that it was fine. Let's see where the other issues are. Basically, all the issues are with that color, and here, because it's on the image, it considers that it's not enough contrast. I was going to check whether this black on this background was working, but it is working. So I'm going to turn Wave off now, and I'm going back to the home page now. So this museum is open, and do you remember what I told you before about the one thing that you want me to do, which is the first thing that I look for when I evaluate a website? Here it says very clearly, discover the life and work of Vincent van Gogh. it couldn't be any clearer. This is what I'm here for. And he says, welcome back to the Bangkok Museum. Plan your visit, book tickets online. They want me to do one of two things. They want me to book tickets, or they want me to support the museum. Now, I can't go right now to Amsterdam, so I'm not going to book tickets. So here, look, I've already got very easily other things to do. If I'm interested in this, and then it tells clearly here, scroll for more. It doesn't wait for me to find out, to fumble about and find out what to do. This is called progressive disclosure. So there is more to do, and you are telling me. Thank you so much. So look how all the important things are above the fold, which is an expression that comes from the newspaper trade. You know, a newspaper, when it's folded, what you see in the folded bit, because that's what you see in the display at the newsagents. So, masterpiece. I actually love this website more and more. Some of the features, the most amazing features, like I said, are very hidden, to the point where I'm now thinking that maybe they don't actually want you to go to find it so easily. The annoying thing is that the scroll works only horizontally. I don't think this page has any vertical scroll, and it's a little bit of a risk that you're taking, because familiarity matters a lot. And people, I don't know the accessibility of this. I don't know whether a web reader would find this difficult to read or not. However, the point is that usually I expect this to go down, to scroll up and down, not to scroll left to right and vice versa, and I may get annoyed. Also, the changing colors may cause issues for people with learning disabilities, because they may get confused. So even though it's super cool, and I think it's a super cool feature, maybe don't do it. It's not really necessary. It's quite subtle, and I don't think it matters a lot, and also the colors are beautiful. And one other good thing, and something that you should always bear in mind, is that the color here is meaningless. If I were someone who only sees in black and white, it wouldn't hinder my understanding of the site. One thing that a bone that I have to pick with it is that the text on the images is not readable. This is a no-no. It's way too low, the contrast. It's not worth it, because the thing is, again, make a decision. What's more important, the text or the image? In this case, it's the text you want me to read. Have a dark enough overlay that makes the text perfectly readable, and that still gives like a little bit of texture, but background images can't be more than interest texture. Do not make them visible at all. This doesn't even actually have an overlay, so that's the bone I have to pick with it. But the rest of this site, I don't have the time to go through it, but is brilliant. Again, and it tells me that it's an issue with museums. We've noticed that the three websites that we looked at, the Italian Museum, the Rijksmuseum, and the Van Gogh Museum, all have slightly controversial or ambiguous, more than controversial, terminology. Because what does art mean? Well, obviously it's art. That's what I'm here for. What's the difference between art and search the collection? What's the difference between the life of and Van Gogh's stories? So obviously it's an issue, because I'm sure that they went through a million different possibilities and ideas, and they decided on this because it's hard, it's difficult to understand, and that's something that we're going through, and that's why we've hired a UX writer, which is fantastic, because like I said, I think that we have a hard task to ourselves, but we are so lucky because the director is someone who is completely all in for innovation, and he totally understands what is needed to create a fantastic digital experience. And like I said, he's the one who had really innovative ideas at the time of lockdown, where I used to wait for Fridays so that I could dance at home to the DJ while watching these incredibly creative artists come up with these amazing drawings that they were doing live. It was extraordinary, and you had like 6 or 7 of them. So The whole thing was incredibly entertaining, and you could dance. So it was fantastic. So this is the kind of person that I'm lucky enough to be working for and with. And again, with an amazing team, you know, the graphic design team wins awards. The developers are top notch, and the museum staff is incredibly dedicated, and they are so really, really great art historians. And also the head of communications, who's responsible for this incredible Instagram account, also is a wonderful writer, and she is completely aware of what needs to be done. Now, the next thing, in fact, is something, because part of the one of the personas that we created is the young teenage person who must be made to understand that this website, this museum, is not a stuffy old place. It's exciting and fun to visit. And that's also who we are targeting with the Instagram account. In the next video, I'll be talking to you about user personas, and I'll show you how we got to ours. It was a lot of fun.